196 feet.
196. Now, if you remember all the way back down to when we had 4 pins on with the dial set to 6, we're at 69 feet. That's quite a big difference. Again, same casting motion, same drop from the rod tip, level wind centered. The only difference being this dial here and how many of these little brake blocks are active. All right, now for today's test, we have a brand new Shimano Tranx 200 spool with 30-pound Power Pro Super Slick on a Megabass Diablo Spec R. And what we'll be doing is testing distance, casting control, and accuracy while going through the entire brake range of the reel. So to start off, we're going to start with all the pins active with the dial set at its highest, which is 6. I have the spool tension set to allow for a little tiny bit of side-to-side spool drift. So the spool's set up to be as fast as possible, but the brakes are set to its max. And we're going to be going from the brake dial set at 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And same thing can be said about the pins on the spool. We're going to be going from 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're going to test every bit of this reel, because that's kind of what you want to know when you're buying a reel, is not only how far does it cast, but how well it's casting for distance with control and accuracy. Me personally, at the highest brake setting, so you have 6 on the dial, 4 on the spool, there's going to be a lot of drift. So when you cast, I cast over my left shoulder. If you cast like with an arc, see the weight kind of swings out? If you have very low braking, that weight's going to come off. Whereas with heavy braking, the resistance of the line coming off the spool is going to cause it to drift out and follow that same arc. So if I cast over my left shoulder and I swing it wide like that, it's going to come back and go right of my center line with heavy braking. The lower you go in braking, the easier it is to have a straight trajectory off the rod tip. And what we're going to be casting today is a 17-gram weight, basically 5/8 of an ounce, from American Casting Association. This is a tournament casting lead. It has a fairly aerodynamic profile, but if you don't have a clean casting stroke, it's going to want to tumble, get offline, and then fall straight back down. So if you don't have a clean stroke, you're not going to get much distance out of it. And that's going to be our benchmark for the medium heavy kind of applications. When we go down to light or lighter, we're going to use a 7.5 gram casting weight. So with all that being said, let's see what we can do. Again, 6 on the dial, 4 brakes on. Let's go see what kind of distance we can get.
Feet.
69 feet with all the brakes set to their max. Now there's a slight breeze coming straight at me, maybe 3 to 5 miles an hour, if that.
65 feet, 6 inches. Feet, 6 inches. 66 feet, 11 inches.
And last cast. Again, we're not trying to make home run casts, we're just trying to be consistent.
64 feet, 1 inch.
All right, so between 64 and 69 feet, we're not carrying any different zip codes when we're sending these out into a minimal orbit. So, that being said, we're going to go down to 5 on the dial, 4 brakes on. One thing I forgot to mention, all casts are being measured within 6 feet of a center line. So if it's outside, like I mentioned earlier about the casting with the heavy brakes, I'm not very accurate with it until I get down to the 1 and 2 range. We're going to scrap those casts.
73 feet, 11 inches.
So we went from 69 at the max distance for 6 on, 4 pins on, and we gained 4 feet just by going down 1 in the dial.
6 inches. 76 feet. 72 feet, 6 inches.
Alright, so at 5, we picked up a measurable gain in distance, which was assumed. And you know what? Look here, see how it's not still fixed at 5? That's interesting. Kind of wanted to go back to 6, and I never bumped it or touched it. Now we're down to 4. So 4 on the dial, 4 pins on. Alright, now, there is a noticeable difference in how this reel is going to throw when you're at 4. It's going from 6 to 5, there wasn't much of a difference. But when I hit that 4 number, and you can see it looked like it kind of crept back up to 5, definitely flew off the rod tip a bit straighter. So those last couple casts when I was at 5 and 6, I was aiming out left, so it'd swing back and hit that center line. That one stayed straighter and it kind of sailed left on me. That's where it gets tricky when you're constantly going and changing your brake settings. Every cast is different.
77 feet, 3 inches. 80 feet, 11 inches.
Now that one hit the tape at 80 feet, and I can definitely tell you, already knowing some of these distances, we're 100 feet shy from when you get down into the 2 brakes on, 1 and 2 on the dial, just to give you an idea.
Feet, 3 inches. 74 feet, 6 inches. 75 feet, 6 inches.
I was wondering why they kind of dropped. We went from 80 down into the 70s. Look where the dial is. It's at 5 again. It's a little loosey-goosey. Let's go back to the 4. Double check. Look at that.
78 feet, 10 inches.
Started off with the rod tip clean and went all the way up to 6. That's a problem. I'm going to cast from here now. I haven't moved ahead of the cones. So I'm going to cast and stick this puppy right in front of the camera. Heads up. Wow. You don't have to measure that. I just wanted to get a... That's pretty interesting. We'll do one more time. Four on the dial. Or even just hold the trigger. So there's no way... I have a tendency to come up here. But we're going to just hold it like this. That proves it. So we're gonna bypass 4, otherwise we'll be making these casts all day. Alright, so we're gonna go right down to 3. 4 pins on. Alright, so we didn't measure them because we didn't know whether or not we were gonna get the brakes to stay put. So I guess it's that 4 setting that just isn't very sticky. Interesting. And anytime I'm using this reel, it's crashing down hard. So you kind of do have to thumb it to stop it.
96 feet, 10 inches.
96? 96 feet. So we went from 69 at the long for the 6 on 4 on to 30 feet, almost 30 feet. Wait, no, 69 to 96. So 27 feet. Again, just by going down 3 on the dial. Staying at 3.
96 feet 7 inches.
So same distance. Go down to 2 on the dial. So back up another 20 feet. Last thing I want to do is take an eye out.
I didn't see that one.
I did.
135 feet and 9 inches.
135.9. So I told her to back up 20 feet. She should have backed up 30. No difference in casting stroke. It all has to do with the braking. Once you get down to the 2 area, it comes off the rod tip so much cleaner. Like me personally, I don't enjoy throwing at those high brake settings. You feel the weight of the resistance of the brakes in your wrist when it's kind of going into the rod tip. That's very, it's very, I don't know, it feels like you got a sluggish reel, so I'm not a fan of it. I like my reel setup nice and speedy. So, still at 2. They come off so much cleaner and straighter.
144 feet and 3 inches.
So 144 versus 69. The point I'm trying to make is if you want more distance, go lower into the braking if the lure allows it. Whoops. Pulled my thumb off the spool a little early. Not being in water, when this thing hits the ground, it stops dead and the spool is gonna overrun.
135 feet and 9 inches.
This is a double featured bonus. I get to work on my casting and get some data. She gets to work on her squats. So now we're just gonna go down to 1 on the dial. 4 brake pins active. Again, a little bit of side-to-side drift on the spool. How far are you at?
167.
Go to 180.
Yeah. 163 feet and 10 inches.
Big gust of wind came as that was like mid-air. I figured, why not measure it? My line blew about 30 feet to the right, but the weight came down clean. But much better. This is fishable to me.
176 feet and 3 inches.
So 176 from 69. Now we're over 100-foot difference just by going up and down on the dial. That's pretty significant. So 4 brakes on, 1 on the dial, 100 feet, 107 feet further than when it was at here. Make 1 more. And this is all the same effort. There's no additional effort going into these casts. It's everything to do with the brake. So this will be the last one before we go down to 3 on the side and back up to 6 again.
171 feet.
Alright, so we're easily in the 170s. Come on back up to 70 feet. So now we have 3 on the spool out of 4. The dial should be back up at 6. Same side-to-side drift on the spool.
Feet and 10 inches.
So the last time we were at 6 on the dial, we were at 4 pins on the brake. Our max was 69. So going down a pin, first cast, into a little bit of a breeze. There's about a 5 mile an hour gust of breeze, and we gained 6 feet. There's it drifting outside. 5 feet to the right of the tape.
75 feet, 7 inches.
Six and 3.
81 feet, 7 inches.
81. So with 6 on the dial, 3 out of 4 pins on, gained a significant increase, 11 feet. Max, we're talking. That's the outlier. So we're going to go down to 5. Again, we had that issue with the dial changing. Still very, very tame. It moved a little bit.
85 feet, 7 inches.
Just making sure I put it back up to 5, down to 5. We're going to cast a little bit differently to make sure we don't bump that dial. Chopping wood.
83 feet, 2 inches.
We're going to do the same thing at 4. We might just end up bypassing 4 again. 4 on the dial, looks good. That's not more about distance, it's trying to see the dial staying pinned. Good.
96 feet, 2 inches.
96 or 86?
96.
Alright, now we can go back to a regularly scheduled program. So 3 breaks on the spool, 3 pins active, 4 on the dial, stays planted, whereas when I was at 4 and 4, it didn't want to. Weird. I think I'm remembering that, right? It was 4 that we had trouble keeping?
$103 feet and 9 inches.
Like 2 more at 4 and 3. 4 on the dial, 3 on the spool.
$108 feet and 2 inches.
I keep on forgetting that I don't have to remember all the distances because I'm going to edit and post and put them up on the corner so you can see. And that'll do it at 4 on the dial and 3 pins on the spool.
104 feet and 1 inch.
Back up a little bit. 3 on the dial. The wind got it. Felt a little mushy when I cast that. My time I think was off and went left. Wish I had like moving targets that I had to always hit them on the center line. They would go back and forth and then have to hit them as they cross the center. That would be kind of fun. Just casting at a beautiful blonde. More enjoyable to look at than throw things at. And again, try to make sure that the level wind is centered so that way you don't have any of those sharp angles. Just be consistent.
124 feet.
Dial's still fixed at 3. It's a nice reel. Very solid. Very simple.
121 feet and 9 inches.
You see the line lay? Lays pretty evenly with 30-pound braid. That's another thing that nobody talks about is line lay on baitcasters. Since braid is so strong, depending on what knot you tie, you can get 10-pound braid to perform at 20 pounds, 30 pounds if you use a PR knot. Whereas most people are using unis and polymers and they're snapping off at 10 to 15 pounds. Nobody would ever dream of using 10-pound braid on a reel like this or some of the smaller reels. And line lay with the light lines isn't all that great on some reels. Which is why I went with the 30-pound because it kind of falls in between the light thin diameter to like the everyday line that everybody uses on the baitcasters.
115 feet and 2 inches.
Now that cast was way out to the right. The reason why I included that is because some people that do these casting comparisons, they're not very transparent. They don't tell you where that cast went. They just show you that they made a cast with a chest cam, then they roll out a wheel and measure. That was way out right. That's dirty pool when people try to include those measurements. because even though it looks like I made a standard cast, the timing was off, the release was off, so the power transferred into the projectile was off. I'm not talking about the measuring from, from where I'm standing to the end of the, where it dropped down using the tape is off. I'm talking about the whole energy of the cast and the form of the cast is off. But people still count that, and then they say other companies make further casts. I don't know who's casting further, this reel versus every other reel on the market, but I just want to make that perfectly clear to you guys that watch other channels that do casting comparisons. It's something to keep in mind. That one hit the tape.
117 feet and 3 inches.
Now, so with that being said, I'm going to turn the camera around. I have this camera from the side, the other one from the front. Now you're going to be able to see everything that goes on out in the distance. And that one landed on both sides of the tape. Kicked on one side, bounced and went on the other side.
112 feet and 6 inches.
112?
Yeah.
Let's go down to 2. Please go down to 160. 2. 3 pins on.
161 feet and 8 inches.
She sure does trust me. Love you. That one was going out left. I wanted to bring it back by thumbing it, but then I realized this is a comparison test and I can't do that. That's what that buzz was. That was my thumb. There's about 4 feet to the left. We'll count that one.
152 feet.
Yeah. Pull it tight. I like how to me, when I see that, it looks like there's gonna be like a foot difference, but it's the same thing. It's a crazy part. All right, still at 3 pins on, but we're now down as far as we can go on the dial. I sent her back a little bit further. Let's go ahead and see how far. All right, a little bit of thumb float over the top of the spool is required on that. It's kind of squirrely. This is probably more of a short range pitching application, maybe throw in some spooks, but you're not going to make any hero casts with it. We can get squirrely really quick.
196 feet.
196. Now, if you remember all the way back down to when we had 4 pins on with the dial set to 6, here at 69 feet. That's quite a big difference. Again, same casting motion, same drop from the rod tip, level wind centered. The only difference being this dial here and how many of these little brake blocks are active. So we're gonna make one more cast.
Feet and 3 inches.
All right, so between 180 and 190s, there's a little bit of a breeze. We'll make one more cast. I don't want to be out here all day. I just wanted, there's a pretty big variation between those two numbers. I just wanted to be certain that we're not going to get any bad data. See if we can get one right in between that. It'd be perfect. That was a little bit right, but we're going to count it just to get done and move on. was about 10 feet to the right.
188 feet.
Perfect. All right, now 2 on, 2 off. Let's go back up to 6 on the dial. Come on up to 75. That was pretty eye-opening. I had a complete perfect view of where that was going. I wasn't gonna hit her. Trust me, I wasn't gonna hit her. And it's different than when you're at the 3 brake or 3-pin setting. That flew quite a bit further than I expected. It came off a lot cleaner too, even with the dial set at its max.
Feet, 2 inches.
Wow. That's interesting. So we're 31 feet further than we were with 4 on dial set to 6. That's significant. I honestly didn't expect that.
108 feet and 4 inches.
Oh, 110 feet was the cast before. That was 108. Oh, wow. That's interesting. So it's 40 feet. Wow.
Feet and 8 inches.
All right, so we're at the 110s with it set there. We're gonna try to move this along a bit quicker. We're gonna go down to 5. Back up a little bit.
Feet and 3 inches.
What?
122 feet and 3 inches. 117 feet and 8 inches.
Now we're going to go back down to 4, see if it stays. Where we had that issue when the max brake setting was being applied, it would jump back up. It stayed where it was supposed to when we were at 5. The max brake setting, it kind of creeped a tiny bit, but at the 4 setting, it really skyrocketed back up to 6. Starting to come off the rod tip a little bit freer and cleaner and more accurate.
133 feet and 10 inches.
This will likely be a good wind setting if you're trying to throw lures into the wind. Certain baits that tend to tumble a little bit, you want to straighten them out, that kind of setting. Not much to really impact anything. I came over the top a little bit, my body was just a little off, a little out of line.
133 feet and 9 inches.
And the dial stayed put at 4.
133 feet and 2 inches.
Back up a little bit. I'm going to go down to 3 on the dial now. Now, I like the way this braking system functions and performs and works and all that kind of stuff. I think they could have put some detents on it. You know, nobody's forcing you into a 3 or a 4. You maybe want like the in-between, but how many people are really doing that? This is a good fishing setting.
Feet and 7 inches.
Still very comfortable, no risk of any blow-ups. Starting to get a little bit better distance. Comes off the rod tip a little bit freer. And the tail end of the cast, it still allows for acceleration. It's not choking down the cast. This is where you're going to start using this reel for general duty applications, general purpose. You have the Tranx 200, big crankbait reel, swim bait reel, that kind of stuff. So you may be spending a bit of time in the higher range of the brake settings really to straighten some big baits out.
137 feet and 7 inches.
But it's when you get down in this range, you'll be using it to throw jigs, spinner baits, all that kind of stuff. If you want to use this reel for punching, 2.4, 2.3, probably a good setting for you, unless you want to really have a, your thumb, handle all the braking. Some guys are like that when it comes to punching. I'm not necessarily one of them. I usually like going 2.3 with punching. On Curado anyway. I haven't really punched this thing yet. I'm going to go down to 2.
132 feet and 10 inches.
Now with most Shimanos, you can't lose the 22s. 2 on the dial, 2 on the spool. You're comfortable and you're throwing for distance. And that's probably one of my favorite settings, at least on the Antares and some of the other reels. Still out for good, comfortable casting, but the brakes weren't really hurting you. They're just helping you. They're helping you achieve max distance without input from your thumb.
Feet and 2 inches.
So our 170, I slowed it down at the end, but I don't know if it was that much of an impact. I thought I felt it get squirrely. I got a little nervous I was going to hit her. Let's see if we can get any more out of it. Free and easy. Good fishing setting.
170 feet and 2 inches.
I figured we'd be in the 80s. Okay. Because I can tell you, when we get down to two brakes on the spool and 1 on the dial, it's going to get a little squirrely. Or it usually does. Let's see. Didn't look like that broke at 180.
Feet and 9 inches.
We got to go to 1. That's interesting. I'm going to take it easy on the first one because it might get squirrely. Go to 200. Okay. Thumbed it a little bit. I thought it was going to get squirrely, but it didn't. And I didn't thumb it at the end.
181 feet and 8 inches.
Since we have a bouncing weight, we do have to kind of wind this in it with some resistance, otherwise we're just going to get digging after digging after digging. And when you're doing it this tight, you have to kind of level it, otherwise you'll get gaps on the sides. So 1 in the dial is where you're getting all your distance. I was a little concerned for a minute.
192 feet and 3 inches.
Now, what my concern was, it wasn't going to be castable 2 and 1. All right, now we're sitting right under 200 feet. All right, now for the last round of tests, we're going to go 1 active brake on the spool, 6 on the dial, and work our way down. Incoming!
feet and 3 inches.
Really? Wow. So 1 brake block on, the dial set to max is almost double the distance at 4 pins on, dial set to max. That's a crazy increase. I wasn't expecting that at all. I told her to come into 80, and I thumbed it before. When I aimed left, but I thumbed it just to be careful. Wow. Again, we're not casting on water. We're on grass, so there's no splash down and then let off.
146 feet and 8 inches.
We are beyond double. Again, 69 feet was as far as we were casting with 4 on, 6 on the dial. We surpassed double. We set the dial to 5.
$156 feet and 2 inches.
Wow. And it stayed pinned. So nice. Comes right off the rod tip, arrow straight, no drift. The bobbing and throbbing
161 feet and 8 inches.
of the rod tip due to the brake, which is almost like a rev limiter kind of sensation when you have resistance here and it's hitting that level wind. And you kind of feel it throbbing as there's resistance coming off the spool. It's kind of minimized. Go down 1 more on the dial. Down to 4. Again, we're hoping to see that the 4 stays put. That was shockingly clean. That came no resistance off the rod tip at all. I almost set the hook. I felt like I had a bump. It was a tape measure. That cast went a little bit right. Just bad timing is all. For a while. But man.
182 feet and 4 inches.
We're already at the 180s. And we only have 1 brake on the spool active. But we're sitting at 4 on the dial. And we're already at where we were at with 2 and 1. 3 and 1. Almost anyway. We're almost there.
I want a sandwich. With tomatoes. And mozzarella.
178 feet and 10 inches.
That was a comfy cozy 178. Oops, I think I drifted left. We'll count that. Coming in the home stretch.
$175 feet.
Alright, so that was the last one with the setting at 4. on the dial, 1 brake on. Let's go down to 3.
173 feet and 10 inches.
One on, 3 on the dial. That might be in the 90s.
188 feet.
Ah, a 188. I remember that one.
$176 feet.
Has a little bit of a higher arc versus kind of a
7% battery left.
That's fine. Yeah, the higher arc versus a flatter trajectory, depending on really how much carry you're getting, you're almost better off having a lower trajectory.
$172 feet and 5 inches.
Still 3, we're going to go down to 2 in a minute.
168 feet and 10 inches.
Man, oh man. Alright, so the breeze is kind of having an effect here. Seems every time I'm reeling in there's no breeze, but when I'm casting there is. But we're down 1 to 2 on the dial, 1 on the brake settings. Okay. Alright, so right off the bat, first off, I cast easy on that because I didn't know what to expect. There's a little bit of a breeze coming at me from here, so I was really tentative on it. But at this setting, mandatory thumbage. Otherwise, there's a high likelihood of an overrun. Please go back to 215.
The camera's saying I have low battery. Should we change it now?
Tiny bit of thumbing, but it had that nice kind of curl coming up off the top of the spool like the DC reels get when they're really
204 feet and 2 inches.
dialed in. So I didn't really thumb, I just let my thumb apply a little bit of resistance to that curl that was coming off the top, just for safety precautions. Again, nice curl. I'll tell you what, that's what DCs are all about. They can maintain that curl without it blowing up in your face ever.
206 feet and 1 inch.
All right, we're gonna go down 1. Please go back to 230. Wishful thinking. This is with the dial set to 1 and only 1 brake on. we were thumbing it. We were hoping that it was going to straighten out and clear its throat. We thumbed it again, hoping it would clear its throat on its own. But wasn't the case. We might need Mucinex. We'll make another cast to see if it's capable of being thrown thumb free or for a reasonable amount of distance without too much input. But as you saw, it very squirrely.
Hard to guess with 2 hats.
It's like 2 ducks. Alright, so her battery in the GoPro died, and we're not really going to get anywhere with one on the spool, one on the dial. That's really going to be used just for your short range pitches and skips, or flips I should say. And so yeah, we're going to cut it here, and that about sums it up for the Tranx 200. Great casting reel all around, very tame at the higher ends of the brake range, and it can get very squirrely once you get down to 1 and 2 and 1 and 1. So it's a sweet reel. Nice rod too. Very, very pleasant rod to throw around. But so with that being said, let's see if we can't dump this and blow this puppy up.